Hello, Miguel from Grumo here, and I'm going to teach you how to create a beautiful flashcard app to learn languages using Glide, which means without coding. Spanish, paella, French, fromage, Italian, pizza, spaghetti, ravioli. Okay, and we're gonna do that all starting from a simple spreadsheet. Let's do it. Here is the spreadsheet. As you can see, it has two tables. One table with the list of languages that we're going to be using: Spanish, French, Italian, and English. Now, I'm going to assume that you are an English speaker and you want to learn any of these three languages: Spanish, French, and Italian. And then we have the cards. And the cards are basically simple words like house, car, table, cat, and then we're going to translate them into Spanish, French, and Italian. And it's basically all we're doing is going to be flipping from one to the next, right? So first we're going to show the English word, and then we're going to show the Spanish, French, or Italian word. And then we have images, which are optional, which basically represent the word. And with this, in a few minutes, we'll have our beautiful flashcard app. All right? So the first step is to go to glideapps.com, open your free account, and then go and click on New Project. Once you are here, just give it a name, Flashcard App, and then you can either decide to make it into a Glide app or Glide page. Glide apps are to create mobile apps, and Glide pages are more like web pages. We're going to create a mobile app. So in this case, we're going to select Glide app and then click Continue. And the next thing is to select a source. Whether you're going to use Glide native tables as your database, Google Sheets, Excel, Airtable, or you can import your own data source. Now, in this case, we're going to use Glide tables. We could also use Glide Sheets, but we want to have a user's table already created because we want to be able to have one user who is the administrator who can manage the cards, create new cards, and edit the cards, right? And then we're going to add the Google Sheet right after that. You could start with Google Sheets, but then you have to recreate the user's table manually. So the simplest way now is just to click on Glide tables, click create project, and there we go. We have our basic app here, which has 3 tables. Now, obviously, we don't need the first 2 tables, things and categories, but what we really want is to have at least a user's table, right? And with this, we can create our administrators to be able to manage the app. So obviously, we don't need the first 2 tables, so we're going to delete them, right? Delete them. One, and then we're going to delete this one too. Okay. And there you go. Now we're going to add our flashcard Google Sheet. And for that, we just click this plus button, then select Google Sheets. And that's going to pull our Google Sheets because we're already connected to our Google Drive. And we're just going to type Flash and search for it. And then we find it here, double click on it. And this is automatically going to pull both tables. And you can see here both tables, sets and cards, as in the Google Sheet, sets and cards. And then we can go to our layout tab, and you can see now it's giving an error because we deleted the existing tables. So we can basically, delete the categories tab, and then things, we can actually grab now the data from the correct source, which is going to be, let's say, cards, okay? And now we're gonna call these cards. But you can see we have a list, and it's not pulling any useful information because we have to go to the actual list component and configure where the data for this component is going to come from. So we click on the left to select the component and on the right to configure the component. And right now we can see the content is not pulling any data. So we're going to say, for example, that the title is going to be the card, and the image is going to be the image here. And there you go. Now we have all our cards: house, casa, car, coche, table, blah, blah, blah. But obviously this is not working as a flashcard app. So the beautiful thing is that in Glide, you can change the style of your list to all these different styles. And the one that we're going to be using, well, it's going to be swipe. There you go. And now we have something that resembles more like a card. The only problem is that you cannot swipe right now because the swipe component, if we go here to the left, we can click on it. You have to assign a column to save the last swipe. And we don't have a column to do that. So what we have to do right now is go to our data editor here. And under cards, we have to create a new column. And it's going to be a user-specific column. And that means we have to add a row ID, which we can do that. All right, that generates a unique ID for each card. And once we do that, we can create a user-specific column that is going to allow us to save the last swipe in a new column for that specific user, because you don't want every time somebody is swiping for all the users using the app to have their cards magically swiping. So this means the current swipe is only saved for the current user, okay? And we're gonna call this just swipe, and then change this to date, because actually what Glide is doing is saving the date of the last swipe. So we click on text and then select date and click done. And now we can go to our layout and click again on swipe list, and then we can assign the last swipe to the swipe column. And now you can see we can start swiping, okay? And once you do that, you'll see that under cards, the swipe dates are being saved. Now, but you can see that the swipe has two different actions, custom actions, left action and right action. Now the right action is showing the detail for the screen, and we don't want to show anything. We just want to be able to swipe left and right, no problem. So we're going to change the action to none. And then now we can swipe in both directions. And you can see how now basically have our app pretty much functional, right? Now, the only problem is that the way we want the app to work is by being able to select a language, Spanish, French, or Italian. And then when we click on the actual language, then we will have only the cards that belong to that language. And right now we have all the languages all together, right? So how do we create this screen where we associate only the cards that belong to each language? And for this, we have to use the most powerful computed column in Glide, which is called a relation column, which allows you to relate two tables with each other, which in this case, we're going to relate the sets to the cards, right? Using a relation column. Basically, we want only, in this case, let's say the Spanish cards to be related to the Spanish cards here, right? So how do we do that? Very simple. We just go to our Glide data editor. And what we have to do is somehow connect the languages here with the cards that belong to that language, right? And in this case, there is 10 cards per language. So a total of 30 cards, right? So to do that, let's create also a unique row ID for our sets, right? We're just going to search for row ID here, click on row ID, right? So what we're going to do now is make sure that we grab this unique ID and put it inside here for the cards that belong to that specific language, right? And we can do that by going to cards and creating a new column, which is going to be called the set ID. So we're going to call this set ID, okay? And click done. And now we know for the first 10 cards, we have to have this ID, right? In this case, for the Spanish ID, it would be this one. So we can copy that ID and we can paste it inside the first 10 cards that are Spanish. So there you go. We can come here and copy it, or we can actually go to the sheet because this is synchronized, right? And we can copy it here as well, right? So for the first 10 cards, we simply can copy and paste that like this. Let me just go like that and boom. Now we know these first 10 cards belong to the Spanish set, and we can do that for the other two sets, the other two languages, French and Italian. So I'm going to copy the row ID and I'm going to paste it on the next 10, right? And I'm going to do that again for the Italian set, right? There you go. And now the three languages are related to their corresponding sets. But we're not done yet because we have to create the relation column. Now you can see that the set IDs have not shown yet. It's because when you're using an external data source, it takes a little bit of time to synchronize the data from the data source, in this case, Google Sheets and the Glide data editor. You can force the synchronization by clicking this arrow here or at the bottom here. And you can see now, in a few seconds, all the row IDs should appear, okay? It seems that we're missing the first one, but that's because, let me see, we're actually not missing it, so that's going to synchronize in a few seconds. But now that we have this, we can create a relation column. And then we're going to create that relation column here. We're going to go to Sets and click the plus button and then search for relation. And that's our computed column that allows us to connect tables with tables. So in this case, we're going to match the row ID that we copy and pasted into the cards table. And we're going to match that with the newly created sets ID column inside the cards, right? Right here, boom. And because each set can have multiple cards, we need to check match multiple. Otherwise, we only match the first match. And in this case, we have 10 cards per language. So let's just click match multiple. And now you can see how when I click it, all the cards that belong to that set are pulled from the cards table. Boom, done. And now we need to rename the column to cards. And I'm gonna say rel because this is a relation column. There you go. Perfect. Now we can create this screen, the one where we only have the sets, and we can click on the sets and then just display the cards that belong to that set. So let's do that. We're gonna go to our layout screen again, and what we need to do is create a new screen just for the sets. Or we could simply go to the cards tab and then grab the source from the sets instead and call this sets. But we can see no sets are being displayed because we were in swipe mode. What we're gonna do is change this to list mode, for example, and we can see now all the sets. Okay, now you don't need the English set in this case because we're interested in learning Spanish, French, and Italian. So what we can do is create a filter that removes any languages that don't have any cards associated with it. For that, we click on the list component, then we can go to options and add a filter where we're going to look at the cards rel, so the relation column that relates the sets table with the cards table, right? And if it's not empty, which means there is a relation, then we're going to display it. And as you can see, as soon as I did that, the English set disappeared. Now, the next step is that when we click in any of the languages, we should see the swipe cards for that language. But right now, we should see the detail page for that language. We cannot swipe this, right? So what we have to do is to create a custom action that opens a screen with only the related cards for that language. And to do that, we can create, let's just click on the list component. We're going to create a action, and in this case, it's going to be new screen. So we're going to type new. It's going to say new screen, okay? And then we're going to pull the data of this new screen from the relation column that has all the cards for that language. I click on that, and I can call this cards. And you see now when I click in any language, let's say French, we're gonna get the flashcards that belong to that language, like house, loger, car, auto, table. My French is horrendous, that's why I need this app, obviously. And there you go. Now this doesn't look like the swipe card, so we have to again repeat the step where we convert this list into a swipe component. So we select the list component and we can click here on the swipe component and then click edit swipe list. And then again, we have to select the column where we're going to save the last swipe, which was the swipe date column. And then we're gonna remove the right action because we want to be able to swipe both left and right. And guess what? Now we got the cards that belong only to that language. So in this case, French, but now let's try Spanish. So house, casa, car, coche, table, mesa, that works perfectly. So now the final step is to change the design so it looks like we want it, which is basically the image of the word on top, the word nice and big in the middle, and then a flag representing what language that word is in. So let's do that. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the search because we don't need the search in this case. And then we're going to delete all the components. And don't worry, we can add them the way we want to right now. And the first thing we're going to do is add an image, right? So let's just click on the plus component, type image, and then click on the image. And that's already pulling by default the image that we wanted. And you can change the settings of that image here. And well, I guess that looks good. Maybe we can make it this size, like on the sample, right? And the next thing we're going to add is the actual word. In this case, should be Apple. So let me just type text to add a text component. In this case, it's pulling the word for that flashcard from the correct column, which is called the cards column, right? You can see here, the Apple word belongs to the cards column, right? But we want to make it bigger, so we can simply go to the component and then change it to headline 1, which is the biggest size that we can select. We can center it. And well, we probably need some spacing on top and below so it matches our design. And that's very easy to do in Glide. You just click the add component and then look for separator. And that creates a separator which has a little divider. We can remove the divider and then select medium size. And then we want the same thing below. So you can select the component and click the duplicate item. And then we can drag it and the text component. And the next thing we want to do is to display the flag. But I just want to show you how this is already working. I mean, pretty much you could finish here if you wanted, right? You can see how that's working. But if we want to display the flag that corresponds to that language, then we can grab it also from our table. In this case, the flags are under sets here. You can see here I added also a image column, which is called flag. If we want to add that to the bottom as in the example, we can do a little trick. We're going to create a new column called language ID. So we click the plus button, call this language ID, and it's going to be a number type of column, no precision and no group separator. And what the single value column does is to grab a value, whichever value we enter here, from whichever table we want. So let's create the single value column here, and we're going to call this flag and search for single value column. And then we're going to say from start, and then we're going to grab the language ID value from the sets table. And we want to grab the actual flag, okay? And you can see how it's grabbed by default, the first row inside the sets table, right? But if I change this to a different number, starting from 0, let's say I put here a 1, you see how it's grabbing now the second row. And it's important to know that when you use single value to grab data from another table, that the rows start at 0, right? So the Spanish row is 0, then French is 1, Italian 2, and English 3. And you can see here if we say 0, 1, 2, and 3, how we're grabbing the corresponding rows starting from 0. Now for the cards, we want to pull the flag that corresponds to the language that that card is in, which in this case, the first one is English for house and Spanish for casa. So we will go 3 and then 0, 3, 0, 3, 0, 3, 0, 3, and 0. And for the other languages, the same thing. We're going to start with always English and then with the other language, which in this case is going to be French. Right? Boom. There you go. Now we've entered all the values. So we're grabbing the corresponding flag for that specific card. And now we can use that to enter a new image. Click image. And then we're going to, well, it's already grabbing by default the correct column, but it's not the right aspect ratio. And we're going to change that to 3:2. And there you go. Now we can start swiping through the cards and everything is looking great. Now the app is pretty much finished. And if you wanted to add new sets and new cards, you could do it directly from the data editor. Just go to sets and enter new sets, and the same thing for cards. Or you could do it from the Google Sheet, and then that would be synchronized with the data editor inside Glide. But if we want to be able to administer the app from the app itself, we need to create an admin user, right? So what we're going to do is go to our table here, and under users, we're going to create a new column called role. And then we're going to assign the role admin to one of the users, in this case, me. And I'm going to pretend to be logged in as me, Miguel. There you go. Now that we have this role enabled, we can go to our layout. And let's just say that we want to create new sets. You can see here there is a plus button by default, but this is available to all users. And we want to make sure that it's only available to the administrator. So for that, we need to click on the list component, and then where it says add form, we need to add a condition, which is basically saying only users whose role is admin can edit the app. And you can see if I pretend to be logged in as somebody who is not an administrator, let's say Alan, he doesn't have the plus button. And if I log as an administrator, in this case myself, I see the plus button. When I click on it, I can add new items. Glide creates input and edit forms automatically, but we want to edit this a little bit so it looks better. So instead of new item, we want to say that this is called add set, and then we want to make sure that the name of the set is required. And then in terms of image, we can say the image of the set, which is going to be this one, and it's going to be called set image. And in this case, because it's a language app, we're going to enter here the flag, which is going to be flag, and we're going to make them both required. Okay, there you go. And then when we click on a set, let's say that we want to add new flashcards. So let's select the swipe list component, and then where it says add form, we are going to allow users to add items, but only if they are an administrator. So we're going to add a condition again. We're going to search for role, and where the user's role is admin, only then we're going to allow them to add new cards, and we're going to click the plus button so we can customize the flashcard input field, and we're going to change the screen title to add flashcard, and the first component is going to be, well, the card title right into the cards column, then the image, so card image, and we're going to make this required, and also we're going to make the title required. And for the language, we can select from 4 languages. So what we're going to do is delete this and add a choice component, because we have 4 choices to choose from. And then we're going to select that component, and we're going to select where the choices come from, which is going to be from the sets. And we're going to display this choice as the set title, and we're going to make it required. And then when we select it, we can see here we have the 4 languages for our 4 sets. The only problem is that when we select it, we need to decide where we're writing to the value, and we decided that the language value is going to be written to the language ID column, but the actual value should be from 0 to 3, and we don't have a column with those values inside the set table, so we have to create here under the sets table a new column called language ID, and it's going to be a number type of column, precision 1, no group separator. And remember, we started from 0, 1, 2, and 3. So now we can use that as the value for the language ID. We're going to change the value to the language ID because we want to write either 0, 1, 2, or 3 inside this column. So basically what we're trying to do is grab this value, language ID, and when we create a new card, we have to enter this value in the language ID column, so we can pull the corresponding flag for that flashcard. And now we're going to rename this to the flag that we want to appear. And the final thing is that we have to select which set this belongs to. So for that, we need to add a new choice component. We can duplicate this, and then we're going to grab again the data from sets. But in this case, the values are going to be the row ID, and we're going to display the set again, right? And we're going to call this set, and we're going to write this to the set ID column. So we have 2 choice components, one to select the flag and the other one the set. The reason why is because each set is going to have 2 different flags, one for the language that you know and the other one for the language that you're trying to learn, but both are going to belong to specific sets. So if you want to learn Spanish, you're going to have both words in English and Spanish, but they're both going to belong to the Spanish set. So let's say if I wanted to create a new card for the Spanish set, say we wanted to learn the word banana, so we would start with the English version, banana, then we choose the image, which is going to be a banana image, okay? And that's going to belong to the Spanish set, and the flag, because that's the English word, is going to be the English word, and we can add it. Boom, right? And the banana has been added, but now we need the Spanish version of that. So we're going to click the plus button again, and we're going to call this plátano, which means, of course, banana in Spanish. And then we can choose the image again, our banana image. is going to belong to the Spanish set, and this is going to be the Spanish flag, right? And we click add, and there you go. Now we have the Spanish version. Wee plátano, quiero un plátano, por favor. I sound like a monkey because I'm half a monkey. So great, this is working. Now the last thing is to make sure that the actual set screen looks more like this. And for that, all we have to do is go to the set screen, then click on list, and we can change that to cards. And we can change the list component to tiles, for example, and we're going to have only one tile per row, and the aspect ratio is going to be 3:2, and the title is going to be larger. We're going to put it in the middle, or maybe on the lower left corner. Okay, there you go. That looks a lot more like we want it. There you go. And then now we're pretty much done. Let's just go to our settings, make sure that we have the title that we want for our app, and app to learn languages. Oh yeah. And then for the icon, we can change this to, I don't know, a banana. Why not? This is gonna be our banana. And the color is good. And then for privacy, we're going to make it public so anybody can start learning. But we want to, or maybe why allow people to sign in with a Google account. In this case, there's only one administrator. So if one administrator to be able to sign in, then we're gonna allow the administrators to easily sign in with a Google account. And once we have this, the final step is to publish the app, because right now this is a private app. Let's just publish it. Then we're going to click the publish app button here. It's going to generate a random URL, but let's just call it something like my Flashcard app. And we can copy and start distributing our app to the whole world by using this domain name. Or if you want to have your own custom domain name, you could always click here and upgrade. And now we can open this on our desktop to see how it will look like. And you can see how it's dark because under our layout, we have selected match devices theme. In my case, my device theme is in dark mode, but I can always uncheck that, and that will remove that setting. And there you go, it's now removed, and we can already start using our Flashcard app, and it works great. And this app is going to display perfectly inside Apple or Android devices. And if I log in as an administrator, let's just say Miguel here, continue, sign in with Google. You can see now how as the administrator, I have the plus button and I could start adding new sets and new cards. There you go. A fully working Flashcard app made without coding in a few minutes thanks to Glide. Now, if you want to learn how to create apps like this, you can subscribe to my channel, and I have many other tutorials like this. And if you want to learn in much more detail how to create mobile apps without coding using Glide, just go to grumo.com/goglide. And you'll get a 50% discount to take my 8-hour course where you learn absolutely everything you would ever want to know in order to create mobile apps using Glide. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.